I'm Emily Rooney. Welcome to Beat the Press. Our topics: the son of Red Sox announcer Jerry Remy is accused of murder, creating a nightmare for NESN. NPR's ombudsman eviscerates one of the network's own award-winning reports. The great debate over whether journalism is still a viable profession. Plus, our panel rants and raves of the week. Joining me are Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University, Tom Fiedler of Boston University, WGBH's Adam Riley, and John Keller of WBZ. First, Red Sox announcer Jerry Remy has had a tough few years. Lung cancer, debilitating depression, a recent infection that kept him off the air for weeks, and now his son Jared has been charged with murder. That creates a difficult dilemma for NESN. With the Red Sox set to play the Yankees at Fenway tonight, this is not the news anyone wanted to hear this morning.
So we have breaking news this morning. Jerry Remy will be arraigned today for a murder in Waltham.
Jerry Remy, the 34-year-old son of NESN's Red Sox announcer Jerry Remy, stands accused of murdering his girlfriend, Jennifer Martell, just one day after he was released following a domestic dispute. Middlesex DA Marion Ryan broke the news to reporters.
And Mr. Remy will be arraigned this morning on the charges of murder.
The news has turned NESN and the Red Sox on their heads. A pregame show scheduled to be broadcast from Remy's Fenway restaurant was abruptly canceled. And while there is no mention of the Remy incident on NESN's website, it is prominently featured elsewhere, including ESPN, the Boston Globe, and the Boston Herald. According to sources, Jerry Remy and his son, who has a long criminal record, were not close, but the name alone makes it a big story, as Remy himself has been the center of much attention. That was August 2009 when Remy appeared in the broadcast booth for the first time since his lung cancer and depression. No doubt, those same fans send their sympathies to him now. Oh, this is this one unfortunate situation where being related to somebody famous makes you part of the story too, or infamous now I should say, his son. And you know, NESN has had to make a move on him. They've taken him off the air, or maybe he took himself off the air, but you wonder, this is the kind of distraction that the Red Sox don't need, and whether this is going to have longer-term repercussions for Jerry Remy is anybody's guess.
I don't think it's going to play out in as difficult or negative a way as we might think today. I mean, obviously it's a tragic situation. The family of the victim, for Jerry Remy, it's just awful. But Jerry Remy has not been accused of anything. It would seem to me that if he's off the air for a decent interval, NESN makes a simple acknowledgement of what happened, everybody moves on. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. I hope it isn't.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is not like the Aaron Hernandez story where one of the team's players is implicated in a murder. And frankly, while I understand the fact that this would be a significant news story even without the Remy angle, with it, he's one of the area's best known and best loved broadcasters, very high profile guy that elevates the interest both from the media's point of view and I think in theory the public's. But it almost feels like it's a little overdone, the sins of the son somehow being associated with the father. The Providence Journal, unfortunately, earlier today ran a headline saying Jerry Remy arrested for murder. They quickly corrected it. But is it possible to report on this murder with the Jerry Remy connection being the subhead, or does it have to be in the headline of every story? I'm just asking.
I don't think it would have been a news story if it wasn't
well, it's a brutal murder.
It would have been a story, but not like this.
Yeah. No, I think I actually just want to push back a little bit on that. I think anytime you have a woman who's killed by a man when there have been repeated red flags raised, as there were in this case. I mean, on Tuesday there was some sort of an incident where he threatened her, and apparently in part because of her pleading, and this is always horrible to read about, in part because of her pleading, he was released with a bail warning, I believe. I think I've got that right. I think that this definitely would have been a story, just not as big a story. If I were running NESN's website, I would want some reference of it on there, just very matter of fact. You know, the son of announcer Jerry Remy is accused of killing his girlfriend. You know, Jerry Remy will not be broadcasting this evening. Just something, you know, very simple, straightforward, and leave it at that. I don't know if there's anything to this, but one question I wonder, and my perennial caveat with all things Red Sox is that I grew up a Twins fan and remain a Twins fan, not a Red Sox fan, but I found myself wondering if, given how checkered this guy's record was, if he had at any point along the way been cut slack because of whose son he was, which is not to suggest that Jerry Remy is in some way responsible, however indirectly, for what happened here. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I do think it'd be interesting to see whether he might have gotten more latitude, as I think often happens with the children of famous individuals, because his father is who he is.
He was fired from the Red Sox.
He was.
Yeah. They think he was dealing steroids.
That's right.
So they didn't cut him any slack there.
Or at least not when it came time to fire him.
You know, this is a tragedy from so many ways, but I think not the least of those is the focus is misplaced. The focus really ought to be on the family, the Martell family. And because she is the victim and her family is the one that really is grieving, and yet the story is really about, in most cases, it's about Jerry Remy and what happens to him, because people do, I think, view him fondly, and it is very unfortunate for him. But it's the genre. You're right. That you could not avoid doing that as a reporter covering the story. But I think, Dan, I would tend to agree with you. If you look at other families that have had these kinds of tragedies, and the Kennedy family, absolutely, where there have been relatives of the Kennedys, Senator Kennedy, the late Senator Kennedy himself, yes, there's going to be a period in which there is difficulty, but ultimately time goes on, and I think that the underlying sympathy for Jerry Remy is going to will pick him back up.
I think tragedy is far different than criminal responsibility.
Well, there have been criminal activities that Kennedy family people have been accused of too.
I know.